Happy Sunday, everyone. A British publication once offered a prize for the best definition of a friend. And among the thousands of answers uh, of a friend, of what a friend is, that were received, uh, some of them was something like this. He said, a definition of a friend is one who multiplies joys, divides grief, and whose honesty is inviolable. One also wrote that a friend is one who understands our silence. Another wrote, a friend is a volume of sympathy bound in a cloth. And one also said that a friend is a watch, it's like a watch that beats true for all time and never runs down. But then the winning definition of a friend was something that read this, something like this. A friend is one who comes in when the whole world has gone out. See, how do you define your friend? If you had a friend before, a best friend, a BFF, uh, how would you remember him or her? Do you have a friend just like that right now? So maybe you're probably thinking, is this topic really important? I believe so because in our study of King David today, before he became king, we could see in First Samuel chapters 14 to 18 that he has had many trials in his life. And in those very severe trials, he always had a constant friend, a companion to encourage him, and someone who we can learn from today. His name is Jonathan. And in our understanding today of true friendship, we can see that the example of Jonathan and David is something that we could all learn from. In fact, in the in the in the place in the time that David had killed Goliath, King Saul asked David, "Whose son are you, young man?" David said, replied, "I am the son of your servant Jesse." So while this was happening, Jonathan, who was the crown prince, he was the son of the heir and the son of King Saul. He saw David, Jonathan saw David beat Goliath, he saw everything. He saw how David was honored in front of by King Saul, his father, and in front of everybody. And the passage says that their souls from that time on were knit together. And it's about friendship. It's about true friendship. And uh, they both committed to each other with a friendship that is biblical and is very much something that we will all desire to have. Uh, it shows the story of what a true friendship is like. And so we can learn from here that there are four principles that I would like to share at least that we can learn from as we glean into the life of Jonathan and David. And um, so these two friends they became one in spirit. In fact, in First Samuel 18 verse 1, it says that Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. And so in the New King James Version, it says their souls were knit together. It's about true friendship. It's about deep, committed friendship between two people. And as we look at the friendship of these two courageous and faithful men, we will see several principles that I want to share with you today. In fact, four of them today. And the first principle, as you can find, is all in the slides and in the outline. Number one is true friends share common values. Now, you want to experience true friendship. You want to have a a soulmate, a depth of kind of friendship that um, unless you find someone who has a soul or a value system that same as yours, now you cannot really find a true friend. So there's that invisible part of a person that combines our minds, our wills, our hearts. Now David and Jonathan were true men, two men who whose spirit was one and the same. Their values were one and the same. They may be two different people, but they were committed to the same God. They belonged to the same kingdom. They marched to the same tune. They dreamed the same dreams. They shared common values. Um, their dream is the dream for themselves and for each other. And their dream was for Israel, that all of Israel will follow God and obey God and be committed to God. They have the same goals, they have the same mission, if you would say that. They have the same vision in life in terms of kingdom building. So this is one of the deepest things that they could share with one another. Their values, their souls were knit together. True friendship share common values. So it was David's and Jonathan's souls that were knit together. And they shared the same values, and they share the same beliefs, the same commitments. And because they wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves, expand what God is doing in the world. And because of their shared values, the shared bonds together, they can stand together. And this is so true of true friendship. You see, friendship is bigger than biking or basketball. It's bigger than trout fishing or any hobby that you might share and have interest with together, common interest. The core values that you share together as friends, no matter what hurdles, no matter what difficulties you might hurdle, you share a bond together, a shared bond that true friendship says, well, let's go together. Let's challenge each other. Let's do this thing together. Let's dream together. Let's do it together. It's about togetherness. And principle number 2 is that true friends love each other unselfishly. And you can see that in the story of Jonathan and David. So maybe you cannot find a more compelling story in your life than this story of David and Jonathan. And Jonathan as it relates to his friend David. In verses 3 and 4 of 1 Samuel 18. Because 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 the Jonathan loved David as himself, he took his sword, his bow, his belt, his robe, and he gave this to David. And he said, I love you as myself. I love you, my friend. And he made a covenant with David. See, you should understand Jonathan is crown prince. So when he takes off his robe, he takes off his identity. His that royal robe. He's giving it to a shepherd boy from the hills. What is that signifies is that he's willing to take away and put away his position that he's enjoying right now in his life, and be able to sacrifice that for the sake of his friend. So this is there is something here that's missing in true friendship, and he there is something that's conspicuously missing in this equation. Jealousy is missing from true friendship. There's no jealousy in Jonathan. Even though he saw David have his triumph over Goliath, and from then on, having the adulation of the people, having the admiration of his own father, you would see here that there is no single bit of jealousy that you can find in Jonathan, even though he probably had the right to do so, even though he had probably have the right to be jealous, and him being the crown prince, being the heir of all the kingdom of Israel, and he simply yielded to his friend. He didn't want anything back. He he didn't compare himself to David because he previously, as you know, had his own victories. He had his own victories over the Philistines, and he was the former fan favorite, you might say. And people also adored him at some point. And it came to a point where he probably was tired. I don't know what the answer was during the time of Goliath when he was giving out the challenge. He wasn't one of those who stepped up, and probably he's grown tired of what he's been doing for Israel, and and he's probably at some point where he's grown tired and he wanted others to step up. And so when someone actually did, and that is David, he threw his support, he threw his encouragement to this one young man who would eventually become the king of Israel. And he had no jealousy in him. The question is this: are we that kind of friend who not only share common values with someone and want to challenge and be together for a good cause, uh, do um, that goal, that mission in life with someone, or is you a friend who also is not jealous? In spite of the many achievements of your friend or his what he's accomplished in his life, you don't see that as a challenge to you, as a threat to yourself. Instead, you are one who would be the one who would throw your support to someone, not having a bit of jealousy or envy. So true friends love each other unselfishly. And a third principle we can see here um, is that true friends have deep loyalty to each other. See, the relationship, the friendship of Jonathan and David was so complicated that you see probably that Jonathan, um, his relationship with his father, King Saul, wanted to kill David, and he didn't know probably if it was an ordinary man. He would throw his support to his own blood, which is his father. But then it was complicated because he also had a friendship with David. And so David even warned him when he saw David that my father is thinking of killing you. So he gave him a stern warning. He gave him a warning that in spite of what's going to happen, my loyalty is with you. And he even convinced his father, Jonathan, convinced his father, King Saul, what are you doing? He's not even a threat to you. He did not anything do wrong. He didn't do anything wrong to you. In fact, he gave you the glory that he gave Israel when he beat Goliath. He gave up his own life. He tried to sacrifice his own life for the sake of your kingdom. So he spoke on behalf of his friend, David, and he was loyal to him. So he went deeper into his friendship. In First Samuel, it also says there that um, Jonathan stood by his friend even when his own father turned against him. So he is someone who is loyal. He is someone who, in spite of the circumstances, he will stay true and loyal to his friend. The question is this: are you a loyal friend? Are you someone who someone can trust to be loyal to him or her? Or are you someone who is inconsistent? Are you someone whose own interest is more than the interests of your friend or interests of others? And we can see that David also, he expresses loyalty not just to Jonathan, he expresses loyalty to King Saul. So everybody knew about the loyalty of Jonathan to his friend David. And then you should show as well your loyalty. Stay with your friend. Stay with the kind of loyalty that you have with your friend. True friendship requires loyalty. It means I'll be there for you and I expect you to be there for me. Another a principle that we can see here is that true friends are, and in First Samuel chapter 20 verse 3, and we can see here that true friends are transparent with each other. True friends are transparent with each other. There's a story there in verse 3 and all the way to verse 9. It says there, um, Jonathan replied to David. He says to David, if I had the least inkling that my father is determined to harm you, wouldn't I tell you? Jonathan was telling David, I'm loyal to you. I will be totally transparent with you. I'll be totally honest with you. There was no doubt he was going to tell David what his father's plans were of harming him. That's transparency. You don't hold anything back. You, you let your friend know what you know. If there's something that would harm him, you will tell him or her. 1 Samuel 20 verse 41, it says, um, when they met together, David hugged each other, and Jonathan hugged each other, the both of them, and David bowed down before Jonathan, and he wept. They were caring for one another. They were honest with each other. They were totally transparent with each other. They expressed their love, deep love for each other. I think it's particularly hard for guys to say these things about this stuff about friendship. Um, if friendship is about revealing yourself to someone else and revealing your true emotions to someone, then that's very hard for guys. See, they very early in life, boys receive the cultural message that you cannot show your emotion. You cannot really cry. Don't be a sissy. Boys don't cry. And so, being transparent it surpasses all the other levels of friendship, the cliche level, the fact level, the opinion level, and the emotional level. And so, we can learn that from the Bible that there's only two things that will last forever. That is the Word of God, number one. Number two is people. So, as we go and ask God to find us true friends, true disciples, true companions, if you are a single person, one who a partner in life that you would have that would truly be loyal to one another, transparent to one another, unselfish, and you share common values with. Let's praise God for these kinds of people that He will put in our lives.